The city was alive that night, buzzing with lights, filled with restless footsteps and hurried voices. Yet in the middle of all this noise, there was a quiet subway station where people waited with heavy hearts, each lost in their own struggles. The sound of the arriving train echoed like a reminder that everyone carried a journey, some visible, some hidden deep inside. Among those waiting was a boy named Aaron, no older than 18. He sat hunched on the bench, his hands shaking as he clutched a worn-out notebook filled with dreams he no longer believed in. Aaron had once loved stories of hope. He had written them, shared them with his friends, imagined that one day he would create films that touched millions. But reality had crushed him early. His father had lost his job, his mother was sick, and he had dropped out of school to help with bills. He felt invisible in a world that celebrated success and forgot those who struggled in silence. That night, Aaron's eyes burned with tears he refused to let fall. Just a few feet away stood a man in a simple black suit, holding no arrogance in his posture, no walls between himself and the strangers around him. It was Keanu Reeves. Most people in the station did not notice at first, because Keanu carried himself with the humility of any ordinary passenger. He did not demand attention, yet there was a quiet energy about him, the kind that made people look twice once they realized who he was. Aaron noticed him and froze. The face he had seen in films, the man he had admired for years, was standing close enough to hear the same rumble of the arriving train. The boy's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, but shame held him back. What could he possibly say? What? Would a star like Keanu care about the pain of someone so small, so forgotten? As if sensing the silent storm in the boy, Keanu sat down beside him. His presence was calm, not demanding, but it carried a warmth that reached even the coldest corner of that subway bench. You're holding on to something, Keanu said softly, his voice filled with gentleness. Aaron looked down at the notebook, then at Keanu, unsure if he should answer. It's nothing, he muttered, trying to hide his trembling hands. Keanu smiled, a smile that carried no judgment, only patience. Dreams are never nothing. They are the beginning of everything. The words broke through the boy's defenses, and tears slipped down his face. In that moment, strangers around them pretended not to look, but they could feel the weight of the exchange. There was something larger than fame happening here. It was not a movie scene, but real life, raw human. UNPOLISHED. Aaron whispered. I wanted to tell stories, but I don't think I can anymore. Life doesn't let people like me dream. Keanu leaned closer, his voice firm but kind. Life tries to take dreams away. But dreams don't die if you protect them. You write even if no one reads. You create even if the world ignores. You don't do it because of applause, you do it because it keeps your soul alive. The boy stared at him, eyes wide. He expected comfort, but he did not expect conviction. Keanu was not telling him what he wanted to hear. He was reminding him of what he had forgotten. Before the train arrived, Keanu placed his hand gently on the boy's shoulder. I have been where you are. I have lost. I have been broken. But kindness and resilience will carry you further than fear ever will. Hold on to that. The train doors opened, and Keanu stood. For a second, the boy thought he would walk away forever, just another passing figure in the story of his life. But Keanu paused, turned back, and said, someday, someone will need your story. Don't let it vanish. The doors closed behind him, and the train carried him away. Aaron sat frozen, notebook still in his lap, his tears no longer heavy with despair, but with something new hope. That night, he opened the notebook again, not to write perfect lines, not to create for approval, but to let his heart speak. Keanu Reeves had not just inspired him with words, he had reminded him that even the most fragile dream had power, and in that subway station, a new journey began. The night after the subway meeting, Aaron lay awake staring at the ceiling of his small room. The walls felt heavy with silence, but his heart was restless. Keanu's words echoed again and again. Someday, someone will need your story. Those words pressed against his chest like a light that refused to dim. He had almost thrown his notebook away weeks ago, but now, he held it close. Like it carried not just his dreams, but a promise. For the first time in months, he wrote. His hand trembled at first, but slowly the words began to flow. He wrote about loneliness, about loss, but also about moments of unexpected kindness. He wrote about a man on a subway who carried humility like a shield and kindness like a sword. He didn't care if the sentences were perfect. He just wrote until the first light of dawn touched the edges of his window. But dreams, even when reignited, are never free from challenge. The next morning, Aaron faced his father's weary eyes across the breakfast table. His father had dark circles under his eyes, the mark of a man who carried burdens too heavy for one person. We got the rent notice again, his father said softly. I'm trying to get more shifts, but ... His voice trailed off. Aaron swallowed hard. How could he tell his father about the fire inside him, about the dream Keanu had sparked, when bills were waiting and reality was cold? Guilt wrestled with hope inside him. He nodded silently and tucked his notebook into his bag before leaving for his part-time job at the grocery store. At work, the day stretched long and dull. Customers came and went, and the sound of the register became background noise to his thoughts. He replayed every word Keanu had spoken, searching for courage. But then came a test he had not expected. A group of older boys, rough in their manner, walked in loudly. One of them recognized Aaron from school, a time when he had once shared his stories during writing class. "Look at him," the boy sneered. "The great storyteller bagging groceries now." His friends laughed, and the sound cut deep. Aaron single quotes his face burned, but he kept his eyes down. Humiliation was heavy, and for a moment he wanted to disappear. But then, unexpectedly, he remembered Keanu's calm voice. "Life tries to take dreams away, but dreams don't die if you protect them." That memory gave him strength. He finished, bagging without responding, his silence no longer weak but steady. The bullies eventually left, and though the sting of their words lingered, Aaron realized something important: dreams didn't crumble because others mocked them. They only crumbled if he abandoned them. That night, he returned home exhausted. But instead of lying in bed defeated, he opened his notebook again. He began to shape the pain of the day into a story, one where a young boy faced ridicule but chose silence, not as surrender, but as quiet strength. What Aaron didn't know was that life was weaving threads beyond his sight. Keanu too carried the memory of the boy on the subway. The look in Aaron's eyes had reminded him of his own younger self, of the years when grief and loss had nearly swallowed him. He had walked away that night, but his heart had not let the moment go. He told himself quietly, "I hope he writes. I hope he finds his voice." A week later, fate twisted their paths again. Aaron had saved a few extra coins and went to a small bookstore downtown, one of those places where the smell of old pages lingered in the air like comfort. He wandered through the aisles, notebook in hand, until he stopped at a shelf of books. He believed, maybe, just maybe, if he read stories of those who had struggled and risen, he could learn how to carry his own fight. As he turned a corner, he froze. Standing there, calmly flipping through a book, was Keanu Reeves once again. Cameras, no entourage, just him, simple, quiet, fully present. Their eyes met, and recognition sparked instantly. Keanu gave a small smile, the kind that made people feel seen. "We meet again," he said warmly. Aaron's single quotes, art raced. This was no coincidence. It felt like the universe was giving him another chance. He took a hesitant step forward, clutching his notebook. "I wrote," Aaron whispered, his voice shaky but determined. Keanu, single quotes, eyes lit up with genuine interest. "May I see?" The boy hesitated, his hands trembling as he handed over the notebook. For a few quiet minutes, Keanu read the words written in simple ink, his expression serious and thoughtful. When he finally looked up, his voice was steady. "This is not just writing, this is honesty. And honesty has the power to touch hearts." Aaron's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they carried something new: validation. Someone he admired not only saw him, but believed in him. Yet even as hope grew, another challenge loomed. Outside that bookstore, a pair of paparazzi had noticed Keanu. Their cameras were ready, but what they captured would soon bring unexpected attention not just to Keanu, but to the boy standing beside him. The flash of cameras outside the bookstore was like lightning striking without warning. Aaron froze as the shutters clicked, each burst of light capturing his nervous face beside Keanu Reeves. Keanu noticed the commotion immediately, his calm presence unshaken. He closed the notebook gently, returned it to Aaron, and gave him a reassuring nod. "Don't worry," Keanu whispered, his tone steady, almost protective. "Just breathe. They're here for me, not you." But Aaron's chest tightened. He had lived most of his life unseen, and now in a matter of minutes, he felt as if the world's eyes were piercing into him. He pulled his hoodie tighter, wanting to disappear into the shadows. The paparazzi pressed closer, calling Keanu's name, asking questions with sharp voices meant to provoke. Yet Keanu remained graceful, answering nothing, only giving a polite smile. Then, in an act so simple, yet so powerful, Keanu placed his arm gently around Aaron's shoulder and guided him toward the exit. The boy felt the weight of kindness, not control. It was as though Keanu was telling the camera silently, "This boy is with me. Treat him with respect." Outside, a small crowd had started to gather, their whispers mixing curiosity with wonder. Aaron heard fragments. "Is that Keanu who's the kid? Maybe his relative?" Each word tightening the knot in his stomach. Once they reached a quieter street corner, Keanu stopped, turned to face him, and spoke softly. "Fame can shine a light, but sometimes it burns. Don't let it make you doubt who you are." Aaron nodded, still trembling, unsure of what to say. The days that followed were more challenging than he could have imagined. A blurry photo of Keanu, with a young boy at the bookstore, spread online. Blogs speculated, some curious, others cruel. Strangers wondered who the boy was, some inventing stories without truth. For the first time, Aaron's anonymity had cracked, and it frightened him. At school, whispers followed him in the hallways. Some classmates mocked him, saying he was pretending to be close to a celebrity. Others demanded he prove it, shoving phones in his face, asking if he had Keanu's number. The sudden attention became unbearable. One evening, after a particularly harsh day, Aaron sat by himself in the park. He opened his notebook, but for the first time since meeting Keanu, he couldn't write. Doubt was louder than hope. Then his phone buzzed. It was an unknown number, but the message was simple. It's Keanu. Just checking in. Keep writing. You're stronger than you think. Aaron stared at the screen, his eyes wide with disbelief. It was real. Keanu had found a way to reach him, quietly, without spectacle. In that moment, Aaron felt the weight of something rare: true mentorship, born not out of fame, but of genuine care. A new fire stirred in his chest. He decided that instead of hiding from the whispers, he would face them with resilience. The next day at school, when classmates mocked him again, he didn't argue, didn't try to prove anything. He simply said, "Believe what you want. I know the truth." His calmness unsettled them, and for the first time, the bullying lost its sting. But just as he began to stand taller, another challenge arrived. A local reporter, chasing the viral story, appeared at his grocery store job. The reporter asked sharp questions, hinting at an article that would expose the mystery boy beside Keanu Reeves. Aaron's single quotes heart pounded. This wasn't just whispers anymore, it was a storm that could swallow him. When Keanu heard about it, because news always found its way to him, he faced a decision. He could easily silence the noise with his influence, or he could let the boy find his own strength. Instead, he chose something unexpected. He invited Aaron to meet him again. Not in secret this time, but in a space where both would be tested by eyes, voices, and doubts. A quiet cafe downtown. The stage was being set for a confrontation that would either break Aaron's fragile confidence or show him just how much resilience he truly carried. The cafe was small, tucked between old brick buildings and narrow streets. The smell of roasted beans lingered in the air, and the chatter of customers created a soft background hum. Keanu sat at a corner table, dressed in a plain black jacket, blending in as though he were just another face in the crowd. Yet even in his simplicity, there was a quiet strength about him. Aaron hesitated at the door. His palms were sweaty, his throat dry. He could feel eyes on him as he walked inside, though perhaps most were only curious, not hostile. Still, every whisper reminded him of the storm swirling outside. Speculation. Reporters hungry for a headline. When Keanu saw him, he gave that same gentle smile, the kind that carried no judgment, only welcome. He gestured to the empty seat across from him. "You came," he said softly. Aaron nodded and slid into the chair. "I almost didn't," he admitted. "Everyone's talking. Some people think I made it up, others think worse." His voice cracked, heavy with the weight of shame. Keanu leaned forward, his tone calm but firm. "People will always talk. Their voices can be loud, but they don't define you. What matters is what you choose to believe about yourself." Aaron wanted to believe, but doubt gnawed at him. "But I'm just me. I'm no one. I don't know how to carry this." Keanu's gaze softened. "You're not no one. You're a storyteller. I saw it in your notebook. I saw it in your eyes. You carry something real, and real things always matter." Before Aaron could answer, the door opened again. A reporter walked in, the same one who had cornered him at the grocery store. She carried a notebook and a phone ready to record. Her eyes scanned the room, then locked on the unlikely pair. She approached the table, her smile polite but edged. "With hunger for a story, Mr. Reeves," she said, her voice smooth. "And the mystery boy. People are very curious. What is your connection? The world deserves to know." Aaron's stomach twisted. His instinct was to hide, to run. But Keanu remained calm, his expression steady. He didn't rush to answer, didn't raise his voice. Instead, he turned slightly toward the reporter and spoke with the same humility he had shown on the subway bench. "This is not a mystery," Keanu said gently. "This is a young man with a story worth telling. He is not defined by standing next to me, but by the voice he already carries inside him." The reporter frowned, unsatisfied. "But surely people will wonder why you're spending time with him. Is there something special here? A mentorship, a project?" Keanu glanced at Aaron, then back at the reporter. "What's special," he said firmly, "is kindness. What's rare is listening. If more of us cared enough to notice the struggles around us, maybe fewer young people would feel invisible. That's the only story worth telling here." The cafe grew quiet. Even those who had been chatting moments before now watched in silence. Aaron's eyes widened. He had never seen someone use fame not to shine on themselves, but to shield another. The reporter pressed again, but Keanu simply ended the conversation with a calm nod. "I think we've said enough. Let the boy live his life." The reporter left reluctantly, but the message had already spread through the cafe like fire. Strangers looked at Aaron differently now, not with ridicule, but with quiet respect. When the silence finally settled, Aaron whispered, "You didn't have to do that for me." Keanu smiled. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because it was right. But you," he tapped the notebook on the table, "you need to do something for yourself. You need to keep writing, keep fighting, even when the world pushes back." Aaron felt tears welling in his eyes again, but this time they weren't heavy with despair. They were full of something lighter, something stronger. "I want to," he said quietly. "I just don't know if I'm strong enough." Keanu's voice was steady, unshakable. "Strength doesn't mean never being afraid. It means moving forward even when you are. And I believe you can." Outside the cafe, the sky had shifted into twilight. streaks of orange and purple painting the horizon. It felt like the world itself was listening. That night, as Aaron walked home with his notebook pressed tightly against his chest, he knew something had changed. Not the whispers, not the rumors, those would continue, but inside him, a new resilience was taking root. Yet fate was not finished testing him. The very next day, the viral photo resurfaced, this time with headlines twisting Keanu's words. The internet was a storm again, louder, harsher, and for the first time, Aaron realized this wasn't just about his dream anymore. It was about whether he could carry hope through fire and whether Keanu's rare kindness could inspire him to rise above it. The storm came harder than anyone expected. By morning, the headlines were everywhere. Blogs, social media pages, even news outlets twisted the story into something it was not. Some claimed Keanu was secretly funding the boy. Others mocked Aaron, calling him an attention seeker, or worse. Cruel comments filled the internet, written by strangers who knew nothing of his truth. At school, the whispers turned sharper. Classmates shoved their phones in his face, showing him screenshots of memes and jokes made at his expense. "Look, you're famous now," one sneered, laughing. Another said, "Maybe you begged him for pity." Every word stung like a blade, and Aaron's fragile hope wavered. That evening, he sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the notebook on his desk. His hands shook as he reached for it, but he couldn't bring himself to write. The pages that once felt like a safe place now felt heavy, almost mocking him. For the first time since meeting Keanu, he thought of giving up again. He whispered to himself, "Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm nothing." Then, his phone buzzed. It was another message from Keanu. Simple, but steady. "Storms don't last forever. Keep standing. I'm proud of you." Aaron's eyes burned with tears. He wanted to believe, but the noise was too loud. "How do I stand when everyone's tearing me down?" He typed back, his fingers trembling. Minutes later, the phone rang. It was Keanu himself. His voice, calm and warm, filled the silence of Aaron's small room. "Aaron," he said gently, "I know what it feels like when the world turns cruel. I've walked through grief, through ridicule, through times I thought I couldn't go on, but you must remember those voices out there. They don't know you. They don't see the whole of your journey. Only you carry that truth." Aaron tried to answer, but his throat tightened. Keanu continued, his words like a rope pulling him out of the dark. "You can let them write your story, or you can pick up your pen and write it yourself. Every person who ever inspired the world was doubted first. Every dream worth chasing was mocked before it was celebrated." Silence stretched for a moment. Then Keanu added, "Softer, don't give them your power. Your voice is stronger than their noise." Aaron broke down, tears falling freely, now not of despair, but of release. For the first time, he understood that resilience wasn't about being unhurt. It was about choosing to rise, even when broken. The next day, something unexpected happened. A woman walked into the grocery store where Aaron worked. She was older, her face lined with years, her hands carrying the weight of groceries she struggled to lift. When Aaron quietly helped her bag everything and carry it outside, she looked at him with watery eyes. "Thank you," she said softly. "I saw the photo of you with Mr. Reeves. People can be cruel online, but I just want you to know, your face looked kind. It gave me hope. Don't let them take that away from you." Aaron froze, stunned. Her words felt like a spark of light. In all the darkness, he realized then Keanu had been right. Even one small act of kindness could ripple outward, touching someone else in ways unseen. That night, Aaron picked up his notebook again. This time, he didn't write for himself. He wrote for the woman, for the tired smiles he saw at work, for anyone who needed a reminder that kindness still mattered. And slowly, his stories began to spread, not through fame or headlines, but through quiet sharing. A friend read one and passed it to another. A teacher asked him to share in class. What began as scribbles in a notebook was becoming something more, a voice. Steady and alive. Keanu watched from a distance, proud but careful not to overshadow. He knew this was Aaron's fight, his path. But when the boy wavered, he was there, with a steady hand, a message, a word of kindness. And then came the twist no one expected. One of Aaron's short stories, the one about silence becoming strength, was shared online by a stranger who had stumbled upon it. The words resonated deeply, spreading far beyond his town. People who had never met him found comfort in his honesty. Suddenly, the storm of cruelty began to shift. Alongside the mocking voices, new voices appeared, ones that said, "This helped me. I felt the same way. Thank you." Aaron sat in his room, staring at the growing thread of comments on his story, his heart pounding with disbelief. And for the first time he realized his voice was no longer just his own. It belonged to others too, those who needed it. But with hope rising came a new weight. The world was watching again, and now, Aaron had to decide. Would he hide behind fear, or step into the light Keanu had been guiding him toward all along? The story that a stranger had shared grew faster than Aaron ever imagined. It started with a few comments, then turned into hundreds, then thousands. People from different countries, people he would never meet, wrote to him about how his words had touched them. Some said his story reminded them they weren't alone. Others said it gave them strength to keep going. Aaron sat in a small room, notebook open on the desk, phone buzzing with new messages every minute. For the first time, the noise of the world was not cruel, it was grateful. And yet, inside him, fear still lingered. He had dreamed of being a storyteller, but he had never imagined so many eyes on him. His father noticed the change. One evening, after another long day of work, he sat beside Aaron at the table. "I've been reading some of those messages," he said gently. "Son, you're giving people hope. And maybe that's worth more than anything money could buy right now." Aaron's throat tightened. He had spent so long feeling like a burden, like a disappointment, that hearing his father's quiet pride felt almost unreal. "But what if I fail?" Aaron whispered. His father put a hand on his shoulder. "You already didn't. You chose to keep going. That's success." Days later, Keanu invited him to a community event in the city. It wasn't a movie premiere or a glamorous stage, just a small gathering where people spoke about resilience, kindness, and hope. At first, Aaron hesitated. The idea of standing in front of strangers terrified him, but Keanu's voice, calm and steady, reassured him. Sometimes the scariest moments are the ones that change us the most. The night of the event, the hall was filled with people. Lights hung softly from the ceiling, casting a warm glow. Keanu stood at the front, speaking with the humility that had always defined him. He spoke of loss, of grief, of the importance of kindness when the world feels unkind. And then, to everyone's surprise, he called Aaron to the stage. The boy froze. His legs felt heavy as stone, his heart pounding so loud he thought the whole room could hear it. Whispers rippled through the crowd, some recognizing him from the viral photo, others curious about why Keanu Reeves had chosen him. Aaron took a shaky step forward, then another, until he stood at the microphone. His hands trembled, and for a moment he thought his voice would never come. But then he looked out and saw Keanu in the front row, nodding, calm and steady. He remembered the subway bench, the bookstore, the cafe. He remembered the storm and the strangers online who said his words had helped them. And slowly, his voice began to rise. "I used to think my story didn't matter," he said, his voice soft but clear. "I used to believe that dreams were only for people who were stronger, richer, luckier than me. But then someone reminded me that dreams don't die if you protect them, even when the world tries to crush them." He paused, looking at the faces. Watching him, some were smiling, some wiping away tears. "I wrote my pain, and somehow it became hope for others. And if my voice, as small as it is, can help even one person feel less alone, then I won't stop writing. I won't stop telling stories." The hall grew silent, heavy with emotion, and then, slowly, applause began, soft at first, then louder, rising into something powerful. People stood, clapping, not because he was famous, not because he stood beside Keanu Reeves, but because he had spoken with raw honesty. Aaron's single quote's chest ached, but this time, not with despair. It ached with the weight of something new, purpose. Afterward, as the crowd thinned and people came to thank him, Keanu approached. He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, his eyes filled with quiet pride. "See," Keanu said softly, "the world needed your story, and you gave it." Aaron looked at him, tears streaming freely now. "I couldn't have done it without you." Keanu shook his head. "You could. You just needed a reminder. Kindness is only a spark, but you carried the fire." The boy smiled through his tears, clutching his notebook tightly. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more storms, more doubts, more battles, but he also knew he would never again let fear write his story. And so, the boy who once believed he was invisible had become a voice that inspired others, a voice born not from fame or perfection, but from resilience, humility, and kindness. Keanu Reeves had not just changed a boy's life. Together, they had lit a path for countless others who would hear and remember that no story is ever too small to inspire the world.